I'd heard before that the EU had some territories that were not near Europe, one being in South America. This is another one. This is a French territory called Mayotte. It's part of the Comoros archipelago, which is in the Indian Ocean, close to Madagascar. And this island is called the Island of Death, specifically because of this ring of barriers, reef barriers around it. Boats in the past would have come up to these and would have had issues. Boats can be destroyed by these reefs, and people can die quite easily if you don't know how you're navigating them. Unfortunately, there's still people dying on the journey to Mayotte because people from these islands here, the Comoros Islands, which decided to become free from France a while ago in the 70s, they go on a dangerous journey across this gap here to reach this island in the hopes to become French citizens. Now, that law has changed lately. I think it's not as easy anymore for them to just arrive and become French, but they still make the effort anyway because there's a higher standard of living on this island, even though there's still a huge amount of poverty, over 80% of the population living under the poverty line, and 40% of houses being made out of just bits of metal, basically, corrugated iron. The name Island of Death is, let me see again here exactly where it originated. The name specifically is believed to come from Mauti, meaning a contraction of Arabic, meaning the Island of Death, maybe due to the dangerous reefs circling the island, and then was corrupted to Mayotte in Portuguese, which then turned to the name that we have today. It is a very interesting idea that there are these EU regions so far away. They even use the euro in this island. So the fact that the EU has this reach further than just Europe it's a curious thing, and it's also a driving factor for immigration for people that maybe hope to go to France. This island is so dependent on France for military aspects, for economic aspects, in so many different ways. And we're going to explore a little bit a few images that I found of the island as well. I had put in here something about the poverty line. Let me see, 84% of the population under the poverty line, €1,000-ish per month per household, compared to 16% in France. So quite a big difference. 40% of dwellings of corrugated sheet metal, as I just said. 29% of households have no running water. Yeah, really quite a poor country, but a huge population of youths. I think 40% are under the age of 15, which is quite a big amount. This is the article. End to birthright citizenship in France's Mayotte causes dismay in Comoros because they were making the journey across. Island of Death for refugees. Mayotte is a magnet for Comoros islanders who risk their lives crossing the hazardous seas in search of a better life. So that's where my thumbnail is coming from that specific 1,000 fatalities per year. Quite sad and a pity that it is such a dangerous journey, of course. Also a pity that they can't have a better life in their own islands. Apparently this one here specifically is quite overpopulated. This is, let me get the name for it. This is called Grand Comora, and it's got some amazing volcanoes. Even some active volcanoes that have been eruptions in 2004, 2005, thereabouts, maybe even a little bit later. I will show you, let me see, I do have one open here. This is the volcano crater itself. Let me close this. There's even a quarry in this volcano, which I found a bit mad. You think if a volcano was active, you wouldn't be taking rock out of it. But I did see, okay, well, unless it's not a quarry specifically. Let me see, here's the image. Okay, maybe that's just what a volcano looks like when there's a crater. But look at that, I mean, how cool is that? You can see the different layers of rock. Volcanic islands are always very interesting for me. Reunion is another French territory, part of the EU. I wanted to just mention that too in the video, but more specifically on the Comoros. Here is a picture of some of the volcanic shapes. This is really interesting. I mean, just to see shapes like that, such interesting structures, would be a really beautiful place to visit again. I do have some of these from satellite views, where you can kind of identify these volcanoes. Again, the fact that there's volcanoes on these islands highlights again how they are islands of death in more than just one way. Of course, people live there, I'm sure live good lives to a degree because it's a very green part of the world and the climate seems to be relatively nice, but there is a lot of poverty, and that's, yeah, a problem in its own right. Here we have a few craters, one's filled with water there, that's definitely one there. See all these different elevations. I'm not an expert in volcanoes now specifically, but just to be able to see something like this is really, really interesting for me when I explore these different regions. Okay, I did have a quick look at the ports here. A lot of containers, some oil probably there. There's a pier here as well. They do have their own airports as well, and a football stadium, which is pretty cool. They do have their own national team, I believe. This is another part of the reef. Zoom is stuck there, but this is a bit like in Australia. You have these reefs. I wanted to just show you from a bit further out, the beautiful nature of the reefs themselves. Reefs, because they're in shallower water, tend to have a lot of life because the water is a bit warmer there and surrounded by more shallow water. That means there's a lot of fish in that region. This would be a similar case here. Again, you can imagine if you were in a boat and you didn't see this, you would ram into the reef and maybe damage your boat and then sink. Again, highlighting the name Island of Death. Here is some of the population, and here are the kind of, we could almost call it shanty town. Very simplistic dwellings, but again, they probably have amazing communities there. But yeah, probably quite difficult to live in these buildings compared to modern buildings that we have today. But yeah, still nice to see the little villages and some fields here for farming. Again, not very green areas, so probably difficult to produce a lot of produce there. A lot of vanilla is exported from these islands. That was something that I picked up, which was quite interesting. Let me see if I have economy of Comoros open here. GDP of $1 billion in 2018. That's a very big number. I'm not entirely sure if that's correct because other numbers I saw were much smaller. Exports of only 19 million and imports of 136. 208 with a gross debt of 136. So yeah, maybe it is that high. Quite impressive it is. Main exports partners are India. I'm looking at vanilla, a perfume essence, and basically lots of agricultural goods. Vanilla, of course, is quite a valuable good in its own right. Import goods are just everything they need to survive: rice, foodstuffs, consumer goods, petrol products, cement, transport equipment. They don't produce much there other than agricultural stuff. It is a very probably agrarian society in that sense. Major industries in the country are this perfume again, highlighting that the total labour force is 44,000 people, with a huge amount being unemployed, 25%. Yeah, pretty high. The total number of unemployed in Mayotte is 67,000, which is quite huge. In terms of Mayotte, the economy, numbers are a bit different. That's why I'm kind of confused with the other ones. Here we have only 3 million in exports, and this is the one that has connection to France. So it's a bit confusing to me. France is 66% of imports, Africa 14, yeah, so on and so forth. Demographics are kind of coming down, even though quite a high fertility rate. We have a fertility rate there. That's the orange one. Total fertility rate above 4, which is pretty good. But the island can't really hold more people. That's kind of an issue. They don't have any space to kind of expand, and most of it is mountains anyway, with the volcanic area. So high population isn't really what they want there, even though it's good for growth normally in these economies. Here we have a perfect structured pyramid, showing again how many young people are there. We have interesting blips along the way. Yeah, the islands did experience quite strong economic growth for quite a while, but they did suffer then in the 2008 crisis when France also had their issue. They had a bit of a recession. I'm going to show you a few more images here and then I'm going to finish up. This is just a beautiful view over one of the islands. And to the left here we have a telephone mast. I think this is Grand Comoros. Here we have that port again. Those are those structures there. Looking out over the reef here, it's just amazing. You can see the beaches. It would be an amazing tourism destination, except that people can't really get there because it's so remote. And this is a bit like a crater lagoon. I'm assuming this is what it is. Hard to be entirely sure, but it is a volcanic island. Look at that. I mean, it's just beautiful. That is just the most fantastic view in the world. Just pity they can't get more people out there. Here's a view of the port. Some of the depots there for fuel. And this was just highlighting the distance the migrants have to go for that very dangerous journey. It's at least 64 kilometers, but realistically, you're probably staying from the main town, so 90. And realistically, again, from the main island where most of the people live, 185. Is that correct? 190 kilometers almost. And then just the point to come back to the thumbnail, the EU's island of death. Look how far away it is from France. It is 7,000 kilometers in relation to French Guiana, which is also about 7,000. So it really is as far away as it could be. Reunion's around there. Just a really, really interesting part of the world. A really beautiful island. A pity they have those economic issues. But wow, I mean, what a beautiful, beautiful site that is. Those barrier reefs, or whatever they're called, those reef structures are really amazing, really pretty. And those features on the islands, the wildness, the ruggedness, must be just an amazing place to explore. And if you could actually get out there easily, really must be worth a visit, in my opinion.